my name is Andy Tidy and welcome back to another episode of Canal Hunter. In this Series 6 we are trying to seek out the lost sections of canals on the western side of the Netherton Hill watershed. By that I mean the Dudley canals and the Stourbridge canals. And in this episode we're going to hunt out any surviving remnants of the 1¼ mile Pensnett Canal. To say that the Pensnett Canal arouses little interest is an understatement, to say the least. If you do a Google search for Pensnett Canal, you will be amazed at just how few results it throws up. But that is to massively understate the significance of this particular area that we're about to go through. If all the Black Country was, well, black, this next area was the blackest of them all. Black cat in a coal bunker at night kind of black, you know, really black. But I'm jumping ahead of myself. You need a bit of the history first. This short 1¼ mile private waterway was built by Lord Ward, otherwise known as Earl of Dudley, in 1840. And he used it to reach his collieries and other industrial interests out on Pensnett Chase, land he'd grabbed under the enclosures. Well, the canal sits close to the western entrance of the Dudley Tunnel, and as such it's on the same 473-foot level which stretches all the way back to my home in Aldridge, 16 miles away as the crow flies. The wider Parkhead Basin was restored in the 1960s, but this particular stub arm of the Pensnett Canal was restored by the Dudley Canal Trust in 1995. So this is a relatively recent re-addition to the local landscape. The whole Pensnett Canal was engineered by Matthew Frost, a significant figure in the canal building world. He was also heavily involved in the building of the Pensnett Branch Canal, and his brother James was responsible for building most of the Stourbridge extension, which we'll be looking at soon. This little canal proved to be very successful at transporting goods even in an era when railways were spreading fast. As well as reaching the Saltwells colliery at the far end, dug to reach the thick 30-foot seam of coal about 500 feet below the surface, the presence of coal and ironstone and limestone were the catalyst for a huge iron-making industry, along with brickworks to supply all the bricks that was needed to build them. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, trade tended to move towards the railways, but this little canal still played its part for short-haul work, with goods being moved to the trains via an interchange basin at the far end, a place called the Wallows. The northern half was abandoned in 1940, but the southern half towards Parkhead remained operational till 1950. Carrying goods for the massive Harts Hill and Hingley's Ironworks. Anyway, enough of the history. Let's go and see what's there today. 1¼ miles. It's got to be easy, right? Well, after that cracking start up at Parkhead, things have kind of fallen to bits a bit. After you come over the viaduct and over the bakery, you find that the canal route completely disappears. Truth be told, it lies exactly under where I'm standing now, Crackley Way. Today it's an access route for a light industrial estate, but back in the day it was the Pensnett Branch. I guess this is really where drones come into their own. It looks so much clearer from above. The line of the canal followed here under Crackley Way and then bends around slightly to the right where Crackley Way joins onto Pear Tree Road. Now, one of the problems with the Pensnett Branch Canal is that because it was privately owned, it was very much shut off from the rest of the world. So there are very, very few pictures on the ground. However, there are a great selection of photos looking down on the industry between the wars in the Britain from Above series. So we know where it went, and we kind of know the look of the industry surrounding it. We just don't know at a very granular level exactly what all the bridges look like along the way. Well, anyhow, because I can't actually access the line of the canal here, I'm going to hop along to Blackbrook Bridge, or the site of Blackbrook Bridge. It's just a few hundred yards down Pear Tree Lane, and hopefully we can carry on the story there. So the line of the Pensnett Canal came through behind this lorry under where I'm standing. and then continued on in this direction. Fortunately, there's quite a useful little bit of parking here that I can make use of. Now, it's 10 years since I last came this way, and I stumbled upon this by chance. But at the back of the car park, there is this little tiny narrow alleyway. And would you believe it, whilst all of the canal bed across this way has been lost, this is the old towpath. Let's take a wander down the towpath and see what we can find. And as we approach the very end of this little tiny towpath come footpath and turn the corner, there's something of a surprise. May not look terribly exciting, but this cooling pond is exactly the bed of the old Pensnett Canal. Quite amazing to find a canal bed still in water, albeit unbelievably filthy. It's a bit sad really to get so excited about something so disgusting. Well, that takes us to Pedmore Road, the site of Limekiln Bridge, and we move from the eastern half to the western half of the canal. Back in 1900, although you wouldn't believe it, the area that we've already crossed was largely rural. There were fields and all sorts. But it's almost impossible to describe the filth that follows. As we stood by that festering cooling pond, there stood the Hurst brickworks with its 11 smoking chimneys. And then just over the road, in that direction, squeezed in between the Pensnett and the Dudley canals, was the massive Woodside Ironworks, which rolled seamlessly into the Brierley Hill Ironworks. And then just beyond, behind me, almost straight ahead, there was the Harts Hill Ironworks, just to the north of the canal. And then to the south again, filling in the space between the Pensnett and Dudley canals, there was the even bigger Round Oaks Works. Round Oaks? Yeah, that's right. It's the Merry Hill shopping centre these days. The Round Oaks Works were initially an ironworks, and then as technology improved, it became a pioneering steelworks, the site sitting above the remains of Saltwell's Colliery. As I say, the area from here to the end was one long line of ironworks. The filth, the smell and the noise must have been absolutely indescribable. The Woodside Ironworks, which stood immediately behind me, was a site capable of producing high-grade iron at the dawn of the 20th century. Also a major source of industrial pollution which covered the area in a thick pall of smoke and ash. On the flip side, they produced, among other things, Westminster Bridge, which remains with us today. Now, the Black Country as a whole has a reputation of being something of an environmental disaster area, but this little patch really was the blackest of the black. In fact, a local ditty went along these lines. And when Satan stood on Brierley Hill and far around him gazed, he said, "I never more at hell's fierce flames be amazed." But when he went to Dudley Woodside, he laid him down and died. As I say, the blackest of the black. Now, I have to admit that I have been rather looking forward to getting the drone up in the air here. It's the sort of site that I had in mind when I bought it. I've peered into these sites of old ironworks in the past, and I know that there are some toxic plots remaining, but I don't really know what fingerprint still remain on the landscape today. The satellite images show that the Woodside Ironworks to be a light industrial estate, the one you see behind me. But the grubby remains of the Brierley Hill and Harts Hill Ironworks seem to be beyond the appetite of even the most far-sighted developer. So let's get up there and see. Now, most people go looking for stunning sunset shots with their drones, but here am I trying to cap images from the sunset of the Industrial Revolution. For the technical among you, I'm flying a DJI Mini 2, a smart little drone which falls a few grams below the crucial 230 gram threshold, and so it opens up loads of areas that I can explore. The theory is it weighs less than a pigeon, so if it fell out of the sky, probably wouldn't hurt you much. Anyhow, it offers 4K resolution, 30-minute flying time, and an ability to hover stationary with the aid of a network of GPS satellites. All very clever. Well, it's amazing how these areas change. I've come to the very aptly named Canal Street. And when I visited this area about 10 years ago, there was still a bridge over the Pensnett Canal. You could climb down into the canal bed, and although it was still full of a very oily, toxic residue, it was still discernibly a canal. It was particularly the case to the eastern side behind me. These days you can see just about nothing from Canal Street. But of course, with the aid of the snappy little drone, I can just hop over small obstacles like trees and go and take a look. So let's go and have a look over the site of Harts Hill Ironworks. But the Harts Hill Ironworks in some ways is the one that captures my mind. You can see it in so many of the old aerial photos from the 1920s and 1930s. They were heavily committed into the canal, and even when the northern section of the canal beyond here was abandoned, they still kept it in water, and they operated a fleet of about 40 boats. In fact, one of their iron boats, made in 1895, numbered 18 and called Bessie, still survives, albeit in a sunken form, at the Black Country Living Museum in Dudley. And like many of the local ironworks, it had a speciality. Their speciality was heavy grade chain and anchors, the most notable one of which was the 15-ton anchor which was supplied to the ill-fated Titanic. So from here on, the line of the canal is inaccessible. It's still visible in the form of a stand of trees as it passes through the site of the old Saltwells colliery and the fringes of the Round Oaks works. But from here we're going to do another jump around to the end basin. So it was just after the crossing of Dudley Rd that the Pensnett entered its final terminal basin, a place called the Wallows, and it was the site of several collieries, ironworks, gasworks and brickworks. These days the site of the old Wallows Basin has long gone, but this could so easily not have been the end of the story for the Pensnett Canal. In 1840, plans were drawn up to join the Stourbridge Extension Canal through to Tipton, initially rising through 19 locks and then a long tunnel. Had this been built, the Pensnett would have been extended for about another mile and a half. Anyhow, by the time this was being talked about, the railway movement was in full swing, and of course nothing came to pass. And so the Pensnett finishes where you see it today, the site of the Wallows Basin. I've got to say, I have been really impressed with these drone shots. They have added immeasurably to my understanding of this old canal route. And it's really interesting to compare the drone shots taken in 2021 with those old aerial shots taken from moving aeroplanes back in the 1920s and 1930s. It shows what an amazing transformation has taken place in this area of the Black Country. But that said, it's amazing to me that a canal that was by and large abandoned in World War II, it can still be identified on the ground 70 years later. And as to the terminus at the Wallows, this is perhaps the best photographed section, probably because it could easily be viewed from the Dudley Rd bridge. The old basin has been filled in and replaced by Fenspool Avenue, and that leads quite naturally onto Fens Pools and the Fens Branch Canal. But that, as they say, is another day's story, and one which we will be visiting in our next episode of Canal Hunter. So till then, happy hunting, and I will see you soon. Cheerio.